Well, Fulham are back in action on Saturday after the international break, and tests don't get too much tougher than this. Fulham head up to the Etihad Stadium to face champions Manchester City, one of the most feared teams in the world right now. It's going to be very, very difficult for Fulham to get anything up there. But Fulham will go up there optimistic and maybe hopeful that we can cause a small upset. Here to tell me all about the threat that Fulham will face on Saturday is Lewis Steele from City Watch, which is a great place for all your Man City content. They do a podcast, it's a leading blog and a great social media outlet as well. Lewis, how's it going?
I'm good, thanks, mate. How are you?
Yeah, very, very good, thank you. So, what threat do you think Fulham could pose to Man City on Saturday?
Well, I went Wolves the other week against City, and I think it'll be similar to that. I don't think Fulham will sit back like most teams do at the Etihad. I think they will try and attack us. So I don't think it'll be an easy game by any stretch of the imagination for City fans. And it almost angers me when I see City fans on Twitter and Facebook and stuff saying, you know, it's a guaranteed 3 points against Fulham. But Fulham are a really good side. You've got a brilliant manager, some brilliant players. So I think it'll be quite a tough game for City, not a walk in the park that some may expect.
But I mean, City fans have reason to think that lots of games will be easy now. You've demolished some very, very good teams at the Etihad. What's the worst way that Fulham could approach this game? What is a classic setup that you think, okay, City are going to demolish you here?
Well, there's a classic setup which is it's like a 5-4-1 formation, and they just don't try and attack. They just almost come to the Etihad, and you can almost tell from the first minute that they say, right, a point here will be brilliant. We'll try and keep it 0-0, 1-1 till 80 minutes, and then we'll try and attack. It's what Newcastle did the other week, and although we only beat them 2-1 and we weren't great, I think they had 2 shots in the whole match. One of them was a goal, actually, but it was just, for a Newcastle perspective, I just thought they just sat back and almost expected for us to come onto them, and it just didn't work at all. I think Fulham do need to sort of, you know, assert themselves and try and get us on the break, because City do not leave many men back, so there is space to attack us.
But those attacking outlets that you have are well-known, world-renowned as well. And is there any way that Fulham can stop Sergio Aguero? I think seeing some of Fulham's defensive performance against Brighton a couple of weeks ago, the fear is deep inside me what some of your attacking players could do to Fulham on Saturday. I mean, they could rip apart any team in the world on their day.
Well, that's the thing. That is it now. That City have to believe that they are one of the best teams in the world, and they are one of the best teams in the world. And they've got, it's not just Sergio Aguero, it's Sterling, who's had a great start to the season after poor World Cup. We've got Sammy, he didn't even make the bench last game because of problems off the pitch. There's Bernardo Silva, Riyad Mahrez. There's so many players that can hurt someone. It's just whether they can all, you know, gel together and play, really, because some weeks they just don't. But most of the time, 9 times out of 10, they are brilliant and they're hard to stop.
The player that I've been so impressed with this season is Benjamin Mendy. He's really come into this City team. Obviously, so unfortunate that he was injured for so long last season, and his kind of City debut was short-lived, really. He's added something completely different, though, to this City side this season. Yeah,
well, it's been said probably millions of times, but it is a new signing for City, Benjamin Mendy, pretty much. He's I don't like to disrespect Fabian Delph last season because he was brilliant defensively, but he doesn't offer anything going forward. Whereas Benjamin Mendy, he's got 4 assists already. So aside from that being brilliant for your fantasy team, it's just a different outlet. It's just, Kyle Walker did it last season, but he wasn't as good. But now Benjamin Mendy, he gets it, and his first thought is to get the ball into the box, get his head up, look for Aguero, look for Gabriel Jesus, whoever's in there, and he gets it in. And most of the time he finds his man, and we've been unlucky that he's only got 4 assists. He could have more, but he's just a constant source of attacking threat on the left, and it just gives us more of a balance, really, going forward.
Yeah, I think the Premier League record is 20 assists. I think that was Henry. I wouldn't be surprised if Mendy pushes that unbelievably close this year. So do you think that City can be quite as dominant as you were last year? There was basically no teams that really posed a massive threat. I think you only lost twice. Was it the Liverpool and Man United defeat? And especially against teams in the bottom half of the league. You just seem to walk those games at times. But the league has got a little bit stronger over the summer. Do you think it's going to be difficult for City to replicate the absolute dominance that you had last season?
Well, last season we finished on 100 points, so that's not going to happen again. I don't think that'll ever
really
happen
think so?
again. No, I don't think so, because there are teams that have got better. Liverpool, the obvious choice, but also there's Chelsea, who were poor last season. They've got a new manager, some new faces. They look better. And there's Spurs, who've, they've had a good start to the season as well, despite their loss to Watford. So there are the teams around us are getting better. Whereas we only signed Riyad Mahrez this summer, who is a good player, but he's not going to win you a league on his own, sort of thing. But I think, despite that, we are still the favourites for the league. I can't picture us winning it by 18, 19 points again, but I think we will win it again. It just be a lot tougher. We've got to go to places like Anfield and get a result, which we haven't done since 2003, which is ridiculous. But
have you got over the novelty of it, being a City fan and having these kind of conversations about your team? Because, look, we're both historically little brothers in a small fish in a big pond in terms of our city. You know, we always are looking up at Chelsea, and you guys for so many years, Manchester United were the dominant force, and yet now Man City is one of the most feared teams in the world. It must still be kind of pinch yourself moments that you have as a City fan with some of the experiences that you're having.
Yeah, it's still surreal. It's like, and I think some fans have the novelty has worn off and they've got a bit greedy. There's times where I walked out of the Newcastle game last week and we won, but we didn't play well, and everyone was moaning. But in my head, I was thinking, 10 years ago, you walk out of a game and you've got 3 points. Everyone would be buzzing, everyone would be singing, chanting. But everyone was saying that was awful today. We've got to be better. It's just people have got a bit greedy. But for me, the novelty hasn't worn off. For me, there's sometimes games where, like the Champions League nights, for example, I look around and the atmosphere is great. Everyone's having a brilliant time, and it's almost pinch yourself. It's like, how's this happened in such a short space of time, really?
Yeah, of course. Fulham have a good amount of fans going up to the Etihad, or the City of Manchester Stadium, as I sometimes like to naturally call it. What's your advice for an away fan visiting the Etihad for the first time? You know, where should they drink? What should they do pre-match? I've always quite liked the Etihad because it is so close to the city centre, as opposed to when you go to Old Trafford, it is actually startlingly far away from Manchester.
Well, if they get in the train, there's hundreds of pubs within a 5-10 minute walk from the train station. Yeah. Just turn right out of Piccadilly. There's the Piccadilly Tap, which is probably the first one you come to. But if you venture out a bit further, you've got all of the Northern Quarter. The Port Street Beer House is a brilliant pub, and then from there, it's probably best if it's raining or something, you might want to get a taxi for about £5-6. But it's about a 20-minute walk. It's a nice walk. You can walk up the river if you want. And then obviously the away end it's a brilliant stadium. There's a lot of things around the ground if you want to get something to eat or drink nearer to the ground. It's just whatever happens, Fulham fans will have a brilliant day. If they get battered 6-0, I'm sure they'll have a brilliant day out in Manchester, because it's a great city and they'll just have a fun day, really.
Yeah, and as you say, for Fulham, it's a little bit of a free hit on Saturday. We'd love to go up there, get a point. I mean, in our absolute wildest dreams, nick it and get 3. It would be a real statement for Fulham. But at the end of the day, if we lose 3 or 4-0, I think the fans, the players, the coaching staff probably don't expect too much else, and it's certainly not a disgrace. I just hope we can go up there and give those travelling support a little bit of a performance. Finally, from you, Lewis, it'd be just great to get a quick prediction for the match.
Well, I think it'll be as I said at the start, I think it will be a tough game, but I do think City have got to win. Pep keeps drilling on about this international break. He wants to work with his players more, and he said after the break they'll be better. So I think they'll come back better. We'll still miss De Bruyne, but we've got enough talent to hopefully. I think Fulham may nick a goal, so I'm going to go 3-1 win City.
Do you know what, Lewis? I might even just take that now. That would be not too bad from a Fulham perspective. Lewis, thank you for chatting to Fulhamish.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Come on, Fulham.